Ladies and gentlemen, the greatest battle you will ever fight is not with the world outside of you, but with the world inside of you. The difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary is not in strength, talent, or opportunity. It is in mindset. 99% of people settle for average, but the 1% choose to think differently, to live differently, and to rise differently. And if you can shift your mind, you can shift your entire destiny. The greatest difference between people is not found in where they were born, the family they came from, or the opportunities presented to them. The greatest difference is in how they think. It is in the mind that destinies are shaped, kingdoms are built, and lives are transformed. Every success you have ever admired, every leader you have ever respected, every innovator you have ever celebrated, they were not separated by talent alone, but by the mindset they carried. There is a way of thinking that separates the few from the many, the extraordinary from the average, the 1% from the 99%. The 1% mindset is not about arrogance. It is not about looking down on others. It is about cultivating a perspective so disciplined, so focused, and so committed that the majority cannot comprehend it. The average person is satisfied with comfort, but the 1% are never satisfied with comfort. They are driven by vision, and vision always demands discomfort. The 1% understand that success has a price, and that price is paid in discipline, in sacrifice, and in patience. Most people are controlled by emotions. They do what feels good in the moment, even if it destroys their future. But those with the 1% mindset do what is necessary, even when it does not feel good. They understand that temporary pain produces permanent gain. They know that life rewards the disciplined, not the distracted. While the 99% are busy chasing entertainment, the 1% doesn't are building environments that others will one day pay to be entertained in. The 1% mindset is not built overnight. It is forged through the choices you make daily. Every morning you rise, you are faced with a decision to think like the masses or to think like the few, to be average or to be exceptional. The difference is subtle at first, but over time it becomes monumental. Small daily disciplines compound into massive outcomes. The 1% mindset is not simply a thought, it is a lifestyle. The majority live by excuses, but the 1% live by responsibility. Excuses are comfortable, they make failure acceptable. But responsibility demands growth, and growth demands change. When you adopt the 1% mindset, you stop blaming your circumstances, your background, your environment, or the economy. You take ownership of your life. You stop waiting for doors to open and begin to build doors of your own. You stop waiting for opportunities to come and start creating opportunities where none existed. The average mind looks at obstacles and sees reasons to quit. The 1% mindset looks at obstacles and sees opportunities to grow stronger. When challenges arise, the 99% complain. But the 1% know that resistance is proof of progress. Just as a muscle must resist weight to grow, the mind must resist difficulty to mature. The struggle is not a sign of failure. It is the evidence of development. The 1% do not run from it. They embrace it. Discipline is the secret ingredient. Without discipline, even the greatest vision will die in the realm of imagination. The 1% mindset thrives on consistency. You cannot rise above the crowd if you live like the crowd. You cannot think like the majority and expect to be in the minority of achievers. Discipline separates dreams from reality. The 1% understand that what they do daily is more important than what they occasionally wish for. They measure their lives not by intentions but by actions. This mindset also requires clarity of vision. The 99% live without a sense of direction. They are busy but not productive, active but not effective. They move in circles, mistaking movement for progress. The 1% mindset is different. It begins with vision, and vision defines purpose. Purpose gives clarity, and clarity produces focus. When you know where you are going, distractions lose their power. The 1% know that to say yes to their vision means saying no to countless other things. They are not everywhere doing everything. They are somewhere doing the necessary thing. Another trait of the 1% mindset is patience. The majority want instant results. They want success without the process, glory without the story, and rewards without the work. But the 1% embrace the law of seasons. They know that greatness is not microwaved, it is cultivated. A farmer does not sow today and reap tomorrow. He understands that there is a process of growth, a waiting season, and a harvest season. The 1% mindset honors process. They are willing to wait, but while they wait, they work. The 1% mindset is also anchored in self-belief. Not the shallow belief that says, I hope it works, but the deep conviction that says, I was born to make it work. The majority doubt themselves. They are limited not by their potential, but by their belief in their potential. The 1% refuse to think small. They understand that as a man thinks, so is he. You cannot rise beyond your own thoughts. If you believe you are average, you will live an average life. If you believe you are exceptional, you will pursue life exceptionally. The 1% mindset refuses to accept mediocrity as destiny. The 99% often live for approval. They shape their lives around the opinions of others. They shrink their vision to fit the comfort of the crowd. But the 1% mindset is not governed by the applause of men. It is governed by the assignment within. They are not moved by criticism and not intoxicated by praise. They understand that both can distract you from purpose. The 1% mindset lives for significance, not popularity. They aim to fulfill destiny, not simply to impress people. Another distinguishing mark of the 1% is their relationship with time. Time is the most precious resource, and the majority waste it. They waste it on distractions, on procrastination, on things that add no value to their lives. But the 1% mindset treats time as an investment. Every minute must produce fruit. Every hour must align with purpose. They understand that wasted time is wasted life. The 1% do not wait for the right time. They use time to make things right. Courage is also at the heart of this mindset. The majority are ruled by fear. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of the unknown. Fear paralyzes them from moving forward. But the 1% mindset knows that fear is a liar. They step out in faith, even when the outcome is uncertain. They understand that comfort zones are prisons, and only courage can break you free. They do not wait until the fear disappears. They move forward despite it. That is what makes them leaders, pioneers, and trailblazers. The 1% mindset is rare because it demands a standard few are willing to pay. It requires you to rise before others, to work while others sleep, to study while others waste time, to sacrifice pleasures for purpose. It requires you to endure seasons of isolation, where few understand your vision and fewer support it. But it is in that isolation that strength is formed, and in that separation that clarity is birthed. The 1% mindset is not for the faint-hearted, it is for the committed. This mindset is not inherited, it is chosen. It is not reserved for the privileged, it is available to the willing. Anyone can have it, but not everyone will embrace it. The majority will always choose comfort, but the minority will always choose destiny. And in the end, it is that choice that separates history makers from spectators. The choice of a mindset is the single greatest decision a person can ever make, because it determines every other decision that follows. When you choose the 1% mindset, you choose to think differently, to act differently, and to live differently from the majority. You choose to see what others overlook, to attempt what others avoid, and to endure what others escape. You choose a path that is narrow, difficult, and often lonely, yet it is the only path that leads to greatness. The truth is, most people are not willing to pay the price of greatness. They love the idea of success, but not the responsibility that comes with it. They admire the glory, but they despise the grind. The 1% mindset does not idolize success. It embraces the process that produces it. This is why the 1% are rare. They are willing to go through the fire others run from. They are willing to sacrifice sleep, invest long hours, endure ridicule, and carry burdens the average person considers too heavy. They understand that if you are willing to do what the 99% will not do, you will have what the 99% will never have. The 1% mindset is marked by an unshakable hunger for growth. The average person settles too quickly. They reach a small milestone and declare they have arrived. They graduate from school and think learning is over. They get a stable job and stop developing their skills. But the 1% mindset never stops growing. It understands that life is a school without graduation. Every day carries a new lesson. Every season reveals a new opportunity. And every challenge hides a new treasure. The 1% mindset is not content with yesterday's knowledge because it knows that yesterday's solutions may not solve today's problems. Growth is a lifestyle, and mediocrity is the result of refusing to evolve. This mindset also understands that leadership is not about position, but about influence. The 99% wait for tease. Idols to give them authority. They believe that until they are recognized by others, they have no impact. But the 1% know that true leadership begins with responsibility, not recognition. They lead by example long before they are given a platform. They influence environments long before they are given a title. Their mindset is to serve, to add value, and to lift others, knowing that leadership is not conferred by man, but proven by character. Another critical distinction is that the 1% mindset sees failure differently. The majority see failure as final. When they fail, they quit. When they are rejected, they retreat. When they make mistakes, they hide. But the 1% see failure as feedback, not as defeat. They use failure as a teacher, not an undertaker. They understand that mistakes are proof of movement, and rejection is a sign of redirection. They learn from every experience and allow it to sharpen their wisdom and strengthen their resolve. The 1% mindset knows that failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of the process of success. Vision is central to this mindset. Without vision, life becomes survival. Without vision, effort becomes wasted energy. The majority live reactively, responding to life as it comes, but the 1% live proactively, moving toward a clear vision. Vision creates discipline, vision produces motivation, and vision generates endurance. When you have vision, you can withstand storms, endure criticism, and outlast opposition because you know where you are going. The 1% mindset never loses sight of the destination, even when the journey gets dark. This way of thinking also has a unique relationship with resources. The 99% mindset looks at what they lack and uses it as an excuse. They say, if only I had the money, I would start. If only I had the connections, I would move forward. If only I had the support, I would try. The 1% mindset sees resources differently. It begins with what you already have, no matter how small, and multiplies it through creativity and diligence. They understand that resources are not found, they are created. Money is not the beginning, it is the result. Connections are not the starting point, they are attracted by progress. The 1% mindset sees abundance where others see limitation. The 1% also think generationally. The majority live only for today. Their decisions are based on immediate gratification and their focus is limited to their personal comfort. But the 1% mindset looks beyond itself. It thinks in terms of legacy, asking, how will my decisions affect generations after me? How will my actions today influence tomorrow? They plant trees knowing they may never sit under the shade, but their children and grandchildren will. They build not only for themselves, but for those they will never meet. The 1% mindset is conscious of legacy, because true success is not what you achieve for yourself, but what you set in motion for others. Another powerful dimension of this mindset is its relationship with people. The 99% often surround themselves with comforters, with those who make them feel good about staying the same. They fear being challenged, so they choose friends who reinforce mediocrity. But the 1% mindset is intentional about relationships. It seeks out those who sharpen, challenge, and inspire. It surrounds itself with people who think bigger, act stronger, and believe deeper. It understands that your environment shapes your mindset, and your mindset shapes your destiny. If you want to elevate your life, you must elevate your circle. The 1% mindset is also marked by self-control. The majority are ruled by impulses. They eat what they want, say what they want, buy what they want, and do what they want, regardless of the consequences. But the 1% mindset understands that freedom without discipline leads to destruction. They master their appetites, their emotions, and their desires. They know that not ever they think permissible is beneficial. They delay gratification, choosing long-term fulfillment over short-term pleasure. Their self-control is not a weakness, it is their strength. Another key is resilience. The 99% give up too quickly. At the first sign of difficulty, they retreat. At the first sound of criticism, they surrender. At the first experience of discomfort, they abandon their goals. But the 1% mindset refuses to quit. They may bend, but they do not break. They may fall, but they always rise. Their resilience is built on conviction, and conviction is stronger than opposition. They know that storms do not last forever, and that perseverance always produces reward. The 1% mindset also values excellence. The average person does just enough to get by. They do the minimum required, never more. But the 1% give their best in everything. Excellence is not an act, it is a habit. It is a standard they live by, not a performance they display. They understand that how you do anything is how you do everything. Excellence attracts trust, creates opportunities, and builds influence. It is the silent language of greatness. This mindset sees opportunity differently. The majority majority wait for perfect conditions before moving. They wait for the stars to align, the resources to appear, and the risk to disappear. But the 1% mindset knows that perfect conditions never come. They seize opportunity in imperfect moments. They act in faith, knowing that clarity often comes after movement, not before. They refuse to sit idle, waiting for life to hand them what they desire. They step out boldly, creating opportunities where none seem to exist. Finally, the 1% mindset understands sacrifice. Nothing great is built without cost. The majority want convenience and greatness at the same time, but the two do not coexist. The 1% are willing to pay the cost of their vision. They sacrifice sleep to pursue purpose, comfort to pursue calling, and popularity to pursue principle. They understand that what you give up determines what you rise into. Sacrifice is not loss. It is the seed of multiplication. The 1% mindset is built on an understanding of seasons and priorities. The average person spends their best energy on things that yield no return. They exhaust themselves on gossip, on arguments, on entertainment, on pleasures that leave them empty. But the 1% mindset invests energy like currency. It spends strength on pursuits that multiply value. It knows that every day carries 24 hours, and each of those hours is an opportunity to build, to grow, to prepare. The majority squander their hours and then complain about a lack of progress, but the 1% guard their time like treasure, knowing that wasted time is wasted life. Another hallmark of this mindset is clarity of identity. The majority live their lives trying to be accepted, trying to fit in, trying to conform to expectations placed on them by family, culture, or society. They wear masks and silence their true selves, all in the name of approval. But the 1% mindset knows that the most dangerous thing in life is to succeed at being someone you were never created to be. They embrace their uniqueness. They know they were born original, so they refuse to die as a copy. They understand that influence flows from authenticity and destiny is fulfilled by alignment with one's true identity. The 1% mindset also sees problems as opportunities for elevation. The majority run from problems, complain about problems, and pray to be delivered from problems. But the 1% embrace problems as platforms. They know that the world rewards problem solvers. Every invention you admire, every company you respect, every leader you follow was elevated because they solved a problem others ignored. The 1% mindset looks at a challenge and asks, what solution can I create here? What value can I add? They understand that wealth flows in the direction of solutions and influence follows those who meet need. Ed's discipline is amplified by consistency. The majority attempt something once or twice, then quit when results are not immediate. They go to the gym for a week, study for a few days, save money for a short while, and then abandon the effort. But the 1% mindset knows that consistency is the bridge between intention and manifestation. They commit to the process long after the excitement wears off. They show up daily, whether they feel like it or not, because they know that greatness is not built in bursts of enthusiasm, but in steady perseverance. The 1% mindset is not afraid of solitude. The majority fear being alone, so they fill every silence with noise and every space with people. They fear solitude because in solitude they are confronted with themselves. But the 1% mindset embraces seasons of isolation. They understand that greatness is often incubated in private before it is celebrated in public. They use solitude to reflect, to refine, to sharpen vision, and to strengthen conviction. They are not afraid of being misunderstood because they know that clarity is often birthed in silence. This mindset also measures success differently. The majority measures success by possessions, positions, or applause. They think success is about what you drive, where you live, or how many people know your name. But the 1% mindset measures success by purpose fulfilled, by lives impacted, by value created. They know that true wealth is not what you accumulate, but what you contribute. They measure life not by duration, but by donation. Not by how long they live, but by how much they give. Their legacy is not in the things they owned, but in the people they influenced. The 1% mindset understands the power of vision combined with strategy. The majority dream without plans. They speak of what they desire, but never create a structure to achieve it. But the 1% take their vision and break it into steps, into measurable actions, into daily commitments. They do not leave their future to chance. They map it with intentionality. Vision without structure is a fantasy. But vision with discipline is destiny. The 1% mindset marries faith with strategy, dreaming with clarity, and acting with precision. Another distinction lies in how they handle pressure. The 99% crack under pressure, retreating at the first sign of stress. They see pressure as a burden, but the 1% see it as preparation. They know that pressure is proof of potential. Diamonds are formed under pressure. Gold is purified in fire, and leaders are forged in adversity. The 1% mindset does not run from pressure. It welcomes it as the environment in which greatness is tested and proven. They also live with an eternal perspective. The majority live only for the immediate. They chase pleasure today, even if it destroys tomorrow. But the 1% mindset looks beyond the moment. They evaluate choices by their long-term consequences. They understand that decisions made today echo into the future. They weigh every action against destiny, refusing to trade purpose for pleasure. The 1% live not just for survival, but for significance. Not just for the moment, but for eternity. Another strength of the 1% mindset is adaptability. The majority fear change, clinging to old patterns, resisting new ideas, and rejecting innovation. But the 1% embrace change as inevitable and necessary. They understand that growth requires adjustment. They are flexible enough to shift strategies without abandoning vision. They do not cling to methods that no longer work. They evolve, adapt, and adjust, knowing that relevance requires flexibility. The 1% mindset also recognizes the law of sowing and reaping. The majority want harvest without planting, rewards without work, results without investment. But the 1% know that life responds to seeds. They sow effort, they sow consistency, they sow generosity, they sow integrity, and they know in time they will reap. They are not impatient with the process of sowing because they know that every seed planted will eventually bear fruit. The majority look for shortcuts, but the 1% respect the principle of process. This mindset sees adversity as a teacher. The majority complain about trials, but the 1% extract wisdom from them. They know that pain is not wasted when it is learned from. Every disappointment carries a lesson. Every delay refines patience. Every betrayal sharpens discernment. The 1% mindset mines gold from adversity, refusing to waste experiences. They know that nothing is ever lost when wisdom is gained. The 1% mindset is also fueled by gratitude. The majority complain, focusing on what they lack, what went wrong, and what they wish they had. But the 1% practice gratitude daily, seeing blessings where others see burdens. Gratitude gives them strength, peace, and joy even in difficult seasons. It shifts their focus from scarcity to abundance. Gratitude multiplies their capacity to endure because they see life not through the lens of entitlement, but through the lens of appreciation. Finally, the 1% mindset is anchored in conviction. The majority compromise when pressured. They trade principles for popularity, values for validation, truth for temporary comfort. But the 1% mindset stands firm on conviction. They live by principles that do not bend with trends or crumble under criticism. Conviction gives them backbone when others bow, stability when others waver, and strength when others fall. Conviction makes them unshakable, and it is this inner strength that sustains them when external support is absent. The 1% mindset is driven by an uncommon level of intentionality. The majority drift through life reacting to circumstances, waiting for luck, or hoping that opportunities will fall into their laps. But the 1% mindset does not wait for chance. It creates change. It understands that life is not a lottery. It is a series of intentional choices. Every action, every decision, every habit is calculated to align with purpose. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is accidental. They live on purpose. They act on purpose. And they pursue their goals with precision. The majority are ruled by comfort. They avoid what stretches them. They resist what challenges them. And they retreat from anything that makes them uncomfortable. But the 1% mindset thrives in discomfort. They know that discomfort is the birthplace of transformation. A seed cannot grow unless it is buried. A butterfly cannot fly unless it struggles in the cocoon. A person cannot rise unless they embrace seasons of discomfort. The 1% mindset refuses to settle in ease because they know ease produces nothing but mediocrity. The 1% mindset also has a distinct relationship with vision and faith. The majority only believe what they see. They rely on circumstances as evidence of possibility. If things look good, they feel confident. If things look uncertain, they give up. But the 1% mindset sees beyond the present. It looks not at what is, but at what can be. It sees possibilities where others see impossibilities. This faith is not blind, it is visionary. It is the ability to see the invisible and to act as though it were already visible. It is the fuel that keeps them moving when evidence is scarce and results are delayed. The majority scatter their energy. They chase too many things at once, starting everything but finishing nothing. They live fragmented lives, stretched in every direction, but never mastering any. But the 1% mindset understands the power of focus. They know that concentration produces multiplication. When light is concentrated, it becomes a laser that can cut through steel. In the same way, when energy is concentrated, it can achieve the impossible. The 1% mindset says no to many good things so it can say yes to the right things. It is not about doing more, it is about doing what matters most. Another distinguishing quality is their understanding of responsibility. The majority wait for others to take initiate. They wait for leaders to lead, for governments to provide, for mentors to push them, for conditions to improve. But the 1% mindset takes full responsibility for life. They do not wait for someone else to make things happen. They take action. They do not depend on others to change their lives. They take ownership of their future. They understand that responsibility is the price of freedom. To live without responsibility is to remain a slave to circumstances, but to embrace responsibility is to live in true liberty. The 1% mindset has a relentless pursuit of mastery. The majority are content with mediocrity. They learn just enough to get by, work just enough to keep their job, and practice just enough to appear competent. But the 1% mindset aims for mastery. They understand that excellence comes through repetition, through refinement, through continuous learning. They do not compete with others. They compete with themselves, striving to become better today than they were yesterday. Mastery requires patience, consistency, and humility, and the 1% mindset embraces all three. This mindset is also marked by resilience in uncertainty. The majority are paralyzed by the unknown. They need certainty before they move, guarantees before they act, security before they commit. But the 1% mindset is comfortable walking into uncertainty with faith and courage. They know that clarity often comes in the doing, not in the waiting. They are not intimidated by unknown paths because they trust their vision more than their fear. They move forward even when the outcome is unclear, believing that the path will reveal itself to those who dare to walk it. The 1% mindset has a unique way of handling criticism. The majority are destroyed by it. They allow the opinions of others to dictate their self-worth, their actions, and their direction. But the 1% mindset is immune to the poison of criticism. They listen for truth if it exists, discard what is irrelevant, and keep moving forward. They understand that criticism is often the price of visibility, and opposition is the evidence of progress. They do not measure their lives by the applause of the crowd or the disapproval of skeptics. Their validation comes from within, from conviction, not from external approval. This mindset also values preparation. The majority want to shine on the stage but despise the rehearsal room. They want promotion without preparation, elevation without education, visibility without responsibility. But the 1% mindset invests deeply in preparation. They know that private preparation determines public manifestation. They study when no one is watching. They train when no one is clapping. They discipline themselves when no one is cheering. And when the moment of opportunity comes, they are ready to seize it. Preparation makes them confident, not because they are lucky, but because they are ready. The 1% mindset is fearless in the face of risk. The majority avoid risk at all costs, preferring the illusion of safety. But safety often becomes a prison, keeping them locked in mediocrity. The 1% mindset sees risk as a doorway to reward. They know that every great achievement is born from risk, every innovation requires risk, and every breakthrough demands courage. They are not reckless, but they are courageous. They assess the risk, count the cost, and step forward anyway, because they understand that the greater risk is to remain average. Another defining quality is their relentless pursuit of purpose over popularity. The majority bend to trends, shifting with whatever is currently celebrated. They sacrifice their identity to be liked, their principles to be accepted, and their vision to be included. But the 1% mindset is unmoved by trends. They live for purpose, not popularity. They pursue destiny even when it makes them unpopular. They understand that history does not remember those who followed the crowd, but those who stood apart. Popularity fades, but purpose endures. The 1% mindset also values perseverance. The majority live by emotions. They start strong but quit quickly. They are motivated by excitement, not by commitment. But the 1% mindset perseveres. They keep going after the excitement is gone, after the applause has faded, after the results are delayed. They endure setbacks, failures, and disappointments, yet they continue pressing forward. They know that perseverance is the bridge between dreams and reality, between potential and manifestation. Perseverance is what separates those who try from those who triumph. They also understand the necessity of delayed gratification. The majority want everything instantly. They want quick money, quick success, quick recognition. But the 1% mindset knows that the greatest rewards are reserved for those who can wait. They plant today with patience, knowing that harvest comes tomorrow. They deny themselves temporary pleasures for lasting impact. They invest now to reap later. They choose the pain of discipline over the pain of regret, because they understand that nothing great is achieved overnight. The 1% mindset values knowledge as power. The majority consume information passively, filling their minds with entertainment, gossip, and distractions. But the 1% pursue knowledge strategically. They read, study, ask questions, and seek mentors. They understand that ignorance is more expensive than education. They know that the mind is the greatest asset, and the sharper it is, the greater their influence will be. They feed their minds daily because they know that wisdom is the currency of leadership. The 1% mindset is also anchored in vision for the future. The majority live for the weekend, for the holiday, for the next moment of pleasure. But the 1% think in decades. They ask themselves, where will this decision lead me 10 years from now? What impact will this choice have on my legacy? Their vision is long-term, and because of that, their actions are intentional. They are not distracted by temporary pleasures because they see the bigger picture